Hello and welcome to the Uncapped Podcast, brought to you by Roasthouse Pub, one of Frederick's finest craft beer and culinary destinations, where great people come to drink amazing beer. Visit them to track their taps and menu at roasthousepub.com or download the digital Pour app to track what's on tap. Hello and welcome to the Uncapped Podcast. I'm your host, Chris Sands, and today we're recording down in, is this Ashburn?
Dulles. Sterling, Dulles. Yeah.
In Virginia somewhere.
Yeah. By the airport is what we like to say.
Okay. At Ocelot Brewing Company, I'm joined by Adrien Widman, the founder and owner of this brewery.
Correct.
Thank you so much for taking time and having us down.
My pleasure. It's a long time coming.
And this goes as delicious.
Thank you.
Absolutely amazing.
Thank you.
So most of our episodes, we start out just by getting your backstory. What were you doing before you even had an idea that you wanted to open a brewery? How'd you get into brewing? And just basically tell us about yourself.
All right. The fast story, I guess, or the quick story, if you want, is I was a network engineer. I was working down at the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. I was one of their network and systems admins. And I fell in love with craft beer. So I spent a lot of money trading beers and following forums and going to festivals. And then my wife told me we couldn't afford that anymore because it was too expensive. And I was working for a nonprofit, so that made sense. And she challenged me to learn how to make it. So I did.
What was sorry to interrupt your story real quick. What was the name of the beer you recently did with the Center
that one's called Hope.
Yep. So it was around when Hope was released. I was listening to Elliot in the morning.
Yep.
I didn't realize that Runaway Train, the video for it, had photos and contact information for missing children, and they actually were able to find a substantial number of those children because of that video.
And what they actually did was, when you're watching it on whatever channel is actually playing it, they take your IP address and they locate where you're coming from, and they only show you photos of that area.
Yeah,
so
now
in California, you're going to see different pictures than if you're in Virginia.
Yeah, because it's a new updated website, right?
Yeah.
That plays that, and then they
insert the different pictures.
So that was a really cool.
Yeah.
And I imagine, having worked there previously, is how the beer Hope was.
Yes, yeah, for sure. I love everybody over there, from the top guy down to the bottom people, and I shouldn't say bottom, but you know what I mean, for the scale.
The hierarchy of the.
Yeah, every one of them is fantastic, and they dedicate their lives to doing this every day, and it's hard. I just am greatly appreciative to be able to be a part of that for some time that I was. So I wanted to keep in touch with them, and I still have a lot of them still come here. We have a couple of members that work over there, and so they're always in touch, and we've always tried to find ways to, get together and do things that would help the center.
So you said you were a network engineer there.
Mm-hmm.
Were you specifically just managing the network,
No,
or is that
I was
small enough that you basically did everything?
No, we had a lead network engineer, Conrad. He was awesome. He knew way more than I did, but I did a lot of the sysadmin stuff. I specialized in certain units, and then I also started doing the firewall work and little network stuff, but mostly firewall work and a lot of some servers and some admin stuff on workstations.
Right. So that's my real job at the newspaper. So I don't feel I would do well opening a brewery myself. So this is the closest that I can get to of getting out of working on computers, is to come and talk about beer too.
I think beer, what came about to me was beer is it can be engineered is what it is. It's like cooking too. It's you put in certain ingredients and you do certain procedures and you get a certain outcome. It's not like magic that happens. It's all designed and it's all engineered really to how you want to do it. So my mindset was already there. It was just I had to focus it on the beer instead of the computers of the network.
So sorry, I had interrupted you. You were at, your wife challenged you to learn how to make beer.
Correct. Yes, and I took her up on it. And I called my brother-in-law at the time, and he's like, I know somebody that makes beer. I'll bring him over. And we made a batch in the kitchen, and it was the most god-awful beer I ever tried in my life.
I wonder, have you ever met someone that's claimed that the first time they brewed beer turned out perfect?
I don't think so.
Yeah, the first time I homebrewed, I brewed it with someone who had been homebrewing for years, and just my additional input into it made it awful.
I think a lot of what makes homebrew beer not, I guess, world class is in the fermentation. It's in the procedures of the temperature in the fermentation, the amount of yeast that is pitched. That can dictate a whole lot. You can take the greatest recipe and mess up the fermentation, and then the beer sucks.
Yeah, I'm always amazed anytime I go to a brewery and they don't have jacketed glycol fermenters and the beer actually tastes great.
That is strange.
Because it's just amazing that they're able to put out great beer without having those 100%. Added tools.
Yep. They must be using some kind of magic yeast. I don't know.
Or just magic in general.
Yeah. I mean, Jasper can talk about that more. I know you're going to talk with him soon too. So,
which I'm excited for because I know yeast converts sugars, and that's about where my knowledge on yeast stops.
That is what we use it for. He can tell you more than you ever wanted to know about it. He's a true genius.
So actually, that'd be I've had several brewers and brewery owners tell me that one of the things they think is going to be a differentiating factor between beers going forward is yeast is going to become much more important. That there's so much focus on hops and those things now and historically for flavor, that yeast, the importance of using different yeasts and experimenting with yeast is going to grow in importance. Do you feel that too? Or? To
an extent. I think what needs to be dialed in mostly is the procedures of how the yeast is used first. And if you can use it for everything it's worth and for everything that strain can do, then you can experiment with other ones and see how that does, and then alter your recipe accordingly. And do your mash temps differently, do your fermentation temps differently, do the grain even, you can do differently. And get something that's going to be a little thicker, a little bit thinner, or more character, or more nose, or more flavor, or something like that. I think most of the microbreweries in the country probably focus more on cleaner profile yeast, as opposed to, say, Belgian yeast that are very in your face with the bananas and with all the different flavors and stuff like that come out of it. I don't think a lot of American breweries are really embracing that. There are some, but most of them are going for that cleaner kind of yeast.
So you made your first homebrew. It turned out awful. What was it? What was the first? It was
supposed to be an IPA, but it looked like a brown ale, and it smelled like bananas, and it tasted like hot alcohol.
So you messed up from every angle.
Every angle. 100%.
Well, so thankfully that you didn't feel defeated.
I did it first. I was like, "F this." Oh, sorry. Can I say that?
Not supposed. Well, I try not to, but you trust me. I've been told to F off during episodes before, so you're fine. And if we weren't lazy and we were professionals, we would just edit it out. But we don't do any of that.
Being semi-professional,
yes.
You don't have to. I got challenged to figure out what's wrong with it. Why did that happen? So then I started diving into it. And of course, on that first batch, there was just so much that was wrong. I would just change one thing at a time and then see how that affected it and do a lot of reading, do a lot of talking, do a lot of research. And
so you troubleshot it.
Yeah, exactly.
Took the sysadmin network engineer approach to it. So on that first batch, did you say a relative or was a friend?
It was my brother-in-law at the time.
Did your brother-in-law, was he with you helping you, or
yes.
he just, okay.
Yeah, he was there.
So even he couldn't save you from the
disaster. He had never really made beer either.
Oh, okay.
It was his buddy that knew how to make it, and that guy showed up for like 3 hours, and I'm like, I thought we had to sanitize stuff. He's like, nah.
So maybe he didn't know quite as much as he was claiming to.
No. I think his idea of a successful brew does it get you drunk at the end of the day.
Okay. It's not the best mentor.
No, not at all. But I went on and I found some, and there's a lot of local people that are great. Homebrewers in general are awesome.
Yeah, and the clubs, they love to help each other. And
absolutely.
And from what I understand, I stopped home brewing a while ago, mainly because I found it much easier to just come to people like you and purchase what you're producing than to do it myself. most breweries are also very open to helping home
Correct.
brewers
Yes.
too.
We have a homebrew club that meets here once a month. They come actually tomorrow. They come the second weekend, second Wednesday of every month. Every month at 7:00, and they're open to anybody that wants to come out and learn and join the club if they want to. And we give them yeast. We help them in any way we can. There's some really good brewers in that bunch. A lot of them have won a lot of national awards.
What's the name of it?
50 West.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So you slowly figured out everything that you screwed up in that first batch.
Mm-hmm.
How long did it take before you made beer that you enjoyed drinking?
Probably about 2 years of a lot of brewing, and then I convinced my wife that I needed to spend like $7,000 on a homebrew kit to make the beer I actually wanted. But what happened was, when I got that system, I was able to dial in all the procedures, because it was equipment that was made to make beer. It was designed.
So like a Sapco, or
it was a system called Brewers Hardware out of California, and they custom made it just for me. We had a conical fermenter, and I had it in a freezer that was temperature controlled.
Oh wow!
I was able to.
You went all in.
Oh, I did. Yeah, I had like an oxygen stone. I had like everything to make it just right. And once I could remove all the procedures, that's very hard for homebrewers to also do. The oxygen pickup is really difficult post fermentation for homebrewers to really get out, and that's super important. And once that happened, then the beer started coming out exactly the way I designed them, and then I was like, all right, we got something.
So before you invested in basically a small brewery at your house, had you already had the idea that you were going to open a brewery at some point, or was that still just a hobby?
It was in the back of my mind, but it didn't really all come together until I started figuring out numbers, because I had a house. I live in Loudoun County. It's not cheap. I had 2 kids. Well, at the time I had, I think, 1 kid when I was, anyway, 2 kids. Don't tell her I said that.
Some number of kids.
Yeah, mortgage and all kinds of stuff, and I couldn't exactly just quit my job and not make money and not support my family. So I had to put everything else together too. And once I came up with an idea, I ran all the numbers through, and I'm like, this could work. Let's try. And I went to my brother and my best friend and my dad and basically said, here's my business plan. I'm going to go to the bank. And they read it, and they just said, here's a check. So between them and me, we built the place.
How? When did Ocelot open?
April 2015.
Okay.
Yeah.
Were you always in this whole area of the building, or did you expand into?
The room we're sitting in right now is an expansion.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I
It's a
didn't.
whole lot back and forth.
From what I understand, you've grown fairly quickly in that time frame. You've gathered. In fact, the Ocelot has been, every time I put out posts asking, "Hey, what brewery would you like me to talk to?" Inevitably, several people always like, "You got to talk to Ocelot. You got to talk to Ocelot."
That makes me feel good. Thanks.
You're welcome. Well, thank you for coming on.
Of course.
This semi-professional. So how long between when you got the idea that you were going to, like, hey, this is something maybe it can work, to opening Ocelot?
So I actually I got away from everything. I went to South America where my parents live, and my dad basically said, come on down. No one's going to bother you for 2 weeks. Write a business plan. And once I wrote the business plan and sent it out to get it proofread by them, and they turned around and said, here's a check, I'm like, I guess we're doing this now.
Yeah.
So that part didn't take long, but the build out took forever. It was 14 months to build out. And, we did it with ways. My uncle, who also invested some, he's a general contractor in D.C., so he had a lot of connections of getting people in. But when you work that way with friends of friends, it kind of, the timelines get a little expanded out.
Yeah.
So, budgets went up and timelines got pushed.
Well, while it's great, it's sometimes friends aren't always given top priority to other clients. And,
Exactly. Yeah.
Is this a friendly area for opening breweries?
Absolutely.
That's
Yeah.
what I I during all of our coverage of Maryland's hostility towards breweries, it was often talked about how Virginia was very welcoming and encouraging.
Virginia in general is very, very good. Loudoun County specifically is awesome. I mean, Loudoun County and Visit Loudoun, they sponsor us for events. They talk about us. Like, I think before the show I told you DC 101 is coming out next week to do that. And Visit Loudoun's pretty much flipping the bill for things like that, to get more people coming out. Because they really love their, the wineries and the breweries out here, and they want to get people to come out and visit and hang out in Loudoun County. So they
have the Loco Ale Trail.
And I'm part of the Loco Association, so we try to meet like once every couple months, and we all get to talk about stuff and help each other, and we're very friendly. And we put on an event once a year. We're doing a big Halloween bash this year, actually.
Oh, cool. Where at?
It's I believe it's at Lansdowne. It should be a lot of fun. I don't know how that's going to turn out. It's going to be like, I don't know, 1,000 people dressed up in costumes drinking beer.
Oh, wow.
So it should be a good time.
Yeah. Flying Dog used to have a big Halloween party every year. Yeah. That was always a lot of fun, too.
We do, too. We love our Halloween party. So ours is going to be the weekend before, and then there's the Loudoun County is going to be the weekend after.
Expand your Halloween fun one more weekend.
Yeah, Halloween's my favorite. Yeah.
So how did you come upon the name Ocelot for the brewery?
The short answer is it's a song, and everything we do here is music related. So all of our beers are song lyrics, with few exceptions. Sometimes collaborations don't have to be. I let the other brewery decide if. Sometimes they have something in their mind anyway, and they're like, hey, let's do this. And that's fine. I don't care. So it's a song name from a band called Fish. I'm a big Fish fan. I've been a Fish fan for a very long time. But I'm also a fan of a lot of other music, too, and so we have different things. The longer story is the first 3 names I came up with got shot down by the lawyer.
What were those?
I'm almost embarrassed to tell some of them now, but one of them I think was already taken by somebody. Another one could have had trademark issues along the way, and the third one was just outright bad. I mean, I think I was drunk one night and listening to Pink Floyd, and it was brain damage. And my lawyer's like, you don't want that as a name. That's going to cause lawsuits.
Yeah, that's really not something you want plastered across the front of a can that you're trying to sell to people.
No, not at all. I don't think TTB would have even approved it. TTB didn't even approve our beer name Side Effects.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's Virginia only. ABC approved it, but TTB did not.
Huh.
They don't want to, I guess, think that side
any
effects
kind of implied medical association.
Yeah. And it's just a lyric from a song, that's all.
So my wife and I actually, our first dance was to Waste.
Nice. Very nice.
I loved the beer you came out with recently, Bridge in Brooklyn. And
Castle.
Sorry, Castle in Brooklyn.
Last keg of that right now.
Graham claims to be a huge Beastie Boy fan and did not get the reference at all whenever I said Castle in Brooklyn.
My wife came up with that name. I'm a big Beastie Boys fan too, but
that's what we listened to on the way down.
Nice. Yeah, her and her friend in college used to, their song, I guess, was Brass Monkey, so they would always go out to the bars and sing Brass Monkey or something, so she always wanted that.
I may not be the best parent in the world because both of my girls love the song Brass Monkey also because I played in the car. So that may also make me a semi-professional parent.
And that beer you're drinking is actually licensed to chill, so
nice.
It's not exactly a lyric, but it was based off of that.
Yeah, close enough. Have you ever received any flack from bands by using?
No, never. I know when we first started, we sent an email up to Fish and just let them know, hey, this is what we're doing, and if they were cool with that. And we also asked them if we could play their concerts here, because the webcasts and stuff like that and they were awesome. They wrote back and they said, please go ahead, just don't ever charge a cover for their stuff or something. And we have a fermenter named Trey, so we took a picture of that. And I know Trey doesn't drink anymore, but so I don't know if he exactly ever saw it or approved of it, but somebody over there did and wrote us back and said send us a growler every once in a while, and that's totally awesome. Yeah.
And because I'm not the sharpest person in the world, I didn't notice until you had pointed it out to me at one point that your logo is a guitar pick.
Correct.
Which is also cool. I like that one where it's like the guitar pick.
Spirograph.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's the guitar pick like spun around. Our designer, DK, he used to be a head designer for Dogfish Head. And he also worked with Lost Rhino locally around here before we opened. He's got another real job that pays him well. But he's a friend of mine, and he always wanted to help us out. And for the first couple of years he did. He would just do things for free beer. And then I finally said, my conscience can't do this.
Yeah.
I got to pay you. So I put him
now
on the
that
payroll.
I can. You have to.
So he's on the payroll now. But so he does all of our artwork. And they just showcased him, I think, like 8 months ago or so at the Hyrick Museum in D.C.
Oh, cool.
So it was him and a few other breweries and their artists, and we had all the labels up on the walls and things. So it was really cool. It was nice to see.
That's one of my favorite things about craft beer is can art.
Yeah.
Most breweries just put a lot of effort into making sure that they have beautiful cans.
Yeah. Well, it all comes from technically it's supposed to stand out on the shelf, right?
Yeah.
So it's supposed to grab your eye off the shelf. But a lot of the people that are doing it, like Aslan, for instance, they have Mike Van Hall, who's incredible, and they don't really have cans on the shelf. They sell everything out of their brewery. So, but it's still cool. It's almost just like trying to put art on the beer, and it lifts it, if you will.
It seems like it serves as a dual purpose.
Yeah.
That it's an expression of the brewery.
Mm-hmm.
They use that as another way of expressing their art, the beer itself and the packaging. But then, as you already alluded, the necessity of drawing attention.
Right.
And I wonder, do you look at it too as like Instagram has become such an important part of marketing beer?
Unfortunately, yeah. I'm one of the most anti-marketing promotional guys you'll ever meet in the business or in any commercial business per se. I don't like it. It's a necessary evil at this point because people have to know what you're doing.
Yeah.
I'm just not a fan of overdoing that and trying to like always raise your hand and be like, hey, look at me, look at me, look at me. And we try to make sure we don't do it too often to where we're annoying on social media.
Yeah.
At the same time, allowing people to know what we have and what's coming up, so that they can prepare or get excited.
Which I think is very important for breweries to do. But admittedly, I'm probably, Graham would say, addicted to Instagram. Maybe my wife also. Mm-hmm. But I look at it as a very good tool for breweries to use, especially breweries that are doing can releases, and use it as a way like, this is what we have coming out.
Right.
This is, and giving updates then
yes.
of what's left and what's been sold out. And
mostly those are going to be guys that are way more popular than us anyway. People like the Veil or Aslan or something, where they have to give line updates or they have to give like can updates because people don't want to drive out if they're not going to get anything. Usually our cans will stick around for a couple days.
Do you think that culture is starting to subside some? From an outside view, that seems to be dying down a little bit. That places aren't selling out as instantly. It's not hard. Well, it's not easy, but it's not quite as hard to get your hands on what used to be really hard to get.
It's strange. I think there's just a lot more out there, and people are spreading their money to a lot more places.
Yeah, and I don't think it's any kind of negative attribution to those breweries, like that they're not as popular or they're not doing as great a work. It's just that the market has become more diluted by the mobile canning.
Right.
So
yep.
The ability to have can releases made available to way more places.
Correct.
So there's way more.
There's more of it from every.
Yeah.
I mean, almost all breweries now can bring in the mobile canner, and we have Ironheart, our mobile canner. They actually rent place from us here.
Oh, cool.
To store the candy line. So everyone can have a can release, even if it's small amounts of, I don't know, 60 cases or something like that to whatever they want. But then the breweries that were doing really well with their can sales also at the same time said, hey, let's take this money and make more beer. So you have you have more cans coming out from these places, and you have more places for people to go and get cans.
Yeah, a lot of those places have had humongous expansions too. Aslan just finished up their.
Yeah, Jack and Dave were there last night for their friends and family.
Awesome.
Opening. Yeah, they had good things to say.
Crooked Run.
Yep.
Used to sell out. I believe they didn't they at one
They,
time.
they were doing very small amounts. And, now they have, I think, a larger system. Jake will be here tomorrow, so I can talk to him then about what that is. But
so it's probably a combination of those breweries. They've grown larger and are able to make so much more, and then the dilution of so much more.
I think
beer available.
There's also the fact of what happened to me when I said I used to do this a long time ago and get beer from Europe and get beer from California and everything. And my wife sat me down and was like, dude, you're spending $600 a month on beer. So we can't afford that.
Stop it.
Stop it. Like, you can buy a Mercedes.
Bad, Adrian.
Right. But at some point, you start realizing how much you're actually spending, because it's really easy to go and be like, oh my God, this beer's great. I'm going to go buy like a case or 2 cases of it or whatever, and I can get some for some friends, or I can send some and trade. But you're still spending the money. That can be a hard bill to float sometimes, constantly.
Yeah. So maybe it's
expensive.
also people wallet fatigue.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's a good term for it.
And so we're going to take a real quick break to thank our sponsors, and then we'll come back and talk about the first. So what you said, 2015 you opened.
Yep.
So your first 4 years of business, the general philosophy of your beers,
Definitely.
and just chat more.
Time to get a beer then?
We may as well.
Let me get you some.
A huge thank you to our presenting sponsor, Roasthouse Pub, which is located at 5700 Urbana Pike in Frederick, Maryland. If you have listened to this podcast before, you have definitely heard me go on and on about the beer dinners that Chef Nico creates. Simply put, they are amazing. But Roasthouse Pub has much more to offer. Their friendly staff is knowledgeable about beer and will help you choose from among the 20 beers they have on tap. In addition to the awesome beer selection, the food is always amazing. Make sure to follow them on Facebook and check their website at www.roasthousepub.com to keep up to date on their constant stream of events. So first I'll start out by saying thank you for pouring me some Castle in Brooklyn that Graham wasn't able to make the connection to, despite him saying that's one of his favorite bands. Because this is absolutely delicious.
Thank you. I love that beer.
How large of a brew house do you have?
We have a 15 barrel.
Did you go straight to a 15 barrel?
Yes. Yes. Our tanks are 30s, but the brew house is a 15. Mash tun is mash louder combo is oversized to 25. That just allows us to make more efficient, larger beers. Is all that is for. But yeah, straight from the get-go, I wanted to go. I knew anything below 7 was going to be way too much work for the money that you get out of it, in the return on what you do and how much effort you put into it. 30 for my model, which is very different. When I came out, it was extremely different. Now it's becoming more, and not that I started it, other people have been doing it, but.
Is that the taproom distribution or taproom sales as opposed to going into...
It's not really having core beer thing. It's always changing beers.
Because if you're making 30 barrels of something, it's going to be around a lot longer than being able to turn over new stuff constantly. Yeah,
so when we started, we would just do 15 barrels worth of beer, and then because we wanted our IPAs to stay fresh and we wanted them to be gone within 45 days, hopefully 30, but some of them stick around a little longer. And as the demand grew, kept going, then we would double batch them and we would make 30. But no matter how popular your tasting room really is, it's hard to sell 60 barrels of it out of your tasting room. So you would have to go to distro, and I've always said it's got to go to the right distro. So we allocate all of our beers to the right restaurants or to the right bars, to the right places. So we don't have 6-month-old IPA sitting in on the shelf at Total Wine.
Yeah, while this is absolutely delicious, it does not taste like a beer that would be as delicious at 6 months from now, because there are a lot of delicate flavors in it.
And they will all fade off, and it will become just a shell of itself. So we want them to be served and sold fresh.
cans are only available here, correct?
Here in very, very small amounts every once in a while in the Richmond area.
Okay.
Yeah, we work with Reverie down there, and they come up and they'll pick up some cans, and they'll bring them down there.
How many cases do you usually can whenever for your releases?
So we were doing around 9 barrels worth, and we're starting to do about 6 to 7 barrels worth of cans. Which case equivalency? I got to think about that for a little bit.
Yeah, I'm definitely
It'll
not
come back to
capable
me.
of that math.
So we're trying to get it just right so that there's enough when people don't have to be here right at release day. There's enough for it to last, a week. But we also don't want an IPA sitting in cans longer than it's on draft. And that has happened a couple of times. So that's either the beer wasn't that great, people didn't like it, didn't have enough hype to it, or whatever it is, to maybe we did too much in cans of that particular beer. So we're trying to tweak that always.
So that's something I've been wondering too. Do you have a strong understanding, like when you come out with a beer, how well it's going to sell? And have you had beers that you were like, this beer tastes phenomenal, but for some reason it's not selling nearly as well as a beer that you made that you weren't necessarily the most proud of?
Yeah, a lot. There's a lot of confusion of what actually happens and what doesn't. The biggest one is always going to be if you do a collaboration with somebody and it's a well-known name in the beer geek world, that's going to fly out. Like when we do our collab with the Veil every year, I mean, there's lines out the door, and it's like typical day for them, but not for us. We don't really do that. And all the cases, we'll do 190 cases or something, or 200 cases, and they'll all be gone in like 4 or 5 hours. And then we'll make a beer that's for the first time we ever make it, and we're experimenting with a recipe, and then it comes out awesome, but it doesn't have a name, it doesn't have a history, it doesn't have anything, and people kind of pass it up. They're just like, oh, that's not cool. My friends aren't going to think that's awesome if they bring it to a bottle share or whatever. So, I mean, I don't know. There's lots of factors. Some of our favorite beers are our lagers that we do. I mean, all the awards we've ever won are for our lagers. And our Sunnyside IPA, Pilsner, is we keep that in cans, and it sits. I mean, it's fine. That's a beer that can sit for a while, so that's okay. But it's just amazing to me, that it does. Like this beer here is probably one of my favorite ones. I'm drinking Lamp. It's another Pilsner.
That one just came out, right?
This one just came out.
Is that new, or is it just a re-release?
It's the second time we've done it.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's a cool can too. Looks like a lava lamp.
Yeah. So that to me is just, it's crazy. Like this beer you can drink all day long, and it's good. But people don't buy Pilsners in cans, I mean, at least not the people we know.
That trend seems to be growing a little bit more. And from like reading on Instagram or online and stuff, that now that Pilsners and other lagers have a cool name associated with them, I'll put cool in air quotes, I don't know if everyone, but now that they're just referred to as Crispy Boys, maybe they'll become more popular now, and then you're on the forefront of the
it would be nice.
New trend.
It would be nice, and I wouldn't say I'm on the forefront either. There's been breweries making awesome lagers for a long time, and it's a shame. But I mean, I can tell you what happens when we go to like big festivals, when we go to Hunapoo, and when we go down to Wakefest, and when we do like all these really crazy, awesome events. If I show up there, I'll show up with IPAs and stuff for the crowd. If I show up there without cases of Pilsner for the brewers, they get mad. They're like, go back and get it now.
Yeah, for a long time, I just thought like any brewery that like had a showcase Pilsner, you're just brewing them for each other.
We are, yeah. for the moment, you're right.
Or for yourselves,
right.
There's something to drink on.
I mean, in that, and then there's also the people, because our Pilsner is usually our second bestseller out of the tasting room every week. Newest IPA is always first. Second's our Pilsner. Third is the IPA from last week. So it goes to industry people, and then it also goes to people who were dragged to a brewery by their friend that don't like IPAs.
Yeah, give me the beer that tastes like beer.
Yeah. So, which is a very large percentage of the population. So there's no shortage of people for it. So I don't know why. I hope it catches on because I'm in love with them.
But so do you sell them mainly in draft then, as opposed to cans?
Right.
Yeah, because people aren't going to get excited over. Although, I mean, Lamp would make a beautiful Instagram post. So
it will. And some of the regulars have eventually started switching. Not switching all the time. Like the regulars will come in and they'll try to drink, like they'll go through the different IPAs, or they'll have one IPA that they really like. But now they tend to always finish off with a couple of Pilsners or something like that. And then they're starting to really like the Pilsners. And then now you're starting to see them come in asking for that first, which is kind of cool. And I like seeing that because there's really nothing wrong with it. It's awesome. Yeah. It tastes incredible. And I'll have to pour you one so you like it too.
The last time I was here, well, I didn't have a Lamp, but I had a Sunny Side. Yep. It was really good, but it was the last one I drank because it was like, could have one more if it's low ABV, and it's kind of like a nice cool your palate down.
And if I drank, IPAs all day long when I'm talking to people or having meetings or something like that, I'm going to be sloshed by 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And I can't get any work done.
So it would kind of make it impossible to work at a brewery or run a brewery.
Yeah, I remember one time we had, when Mike McCarthy was here as our head brewer, I showed up at like 9 in the morning and he had taken these little snifter glasses and he pulled samples from every barrel that we had barrel-aged stouts in, and there was probably like 16 of them. So we had to do our tasting notes at 9 o'clock in the morning. By the time I was done, at 10 o'clock, I was like,
I'm just going to go home now.
Yeah, exactly.
Call me an Uber.
Yep.
I need a nap.
Yep.
When you opened, did you hire a head brewer right away, or did you work as the head brewer at first?
I worked as the head brewer at first, and I was lucky enough to meet up with Mike, who actually, him and I went to college together. We knew each other then, but we had lost touch in between. He was working at DC Brow. And out of nowhere, he sent me an email saying, "Hey, I heard you're opening a brewery," and we had some mutual friends, and they put him in contact with me. And Mike has like so much experience brewing, like professionally brewing for, I think he's going on 20 years now, if not more.
Oh wow, yeah. So
he knew what he was doing. He knew what he was doing. So for me, who was coming from a homebrew system, there's a lot of things I didn't know how to do. I knew the basic recipes and procedures of making the beer. I didn't know how to use caustic and how to use acid and the different pressures that are going to be happening. And
you had a little bit more than a homebrew system, though.
I did, but still not to this level. This is dangerous level. We're talking about 1,000 gallons of 190-degree water that can splash on you and kill you in a minute.
Yeah, because now you're working with things that are what the typical causes of accidents in a brewery.
Right.
High pressure valves or closures failing and hitting you with extremely hot water, or the tons of caustic
or
cleaners you're using.
Our dump valve in the fermenter gets plugged with hops. On a homebrew scale, it's not going to be that big a deal. Here, you're losing weeks worth of fermentation time. You're losing possibly an entire tank of beer. You're losing a lot of stuff, and the knowledge of knowing how to deal with a lot of those things was something Mike brought. I'll be forever grateful for.
So I think it was here that I saw a video of a tank.
Volcano.
Yeah. What was that during a dry hopping that happened?
Yeah, that was dry hopping. And that, I don't think people realize that happens a lot.
That's what I think. In those the comments to the video, it was just like everyone who worked at a brewery, it was like, it's really no big deal. This is what happened.
The only thing that made that particular video so like dramatic was that Justin, it was his first time dry hopping with this poor guy. He was so like upset that happened. He got the hatch down and got one hook. So it's almost like putting your thumb on a hose.
Oh.
So if he had kept the door open,
it just would have overflowed a little bit.
Like it just overflows, exactly.
So he did it perfectly to make it as dramatic as possible.
Right. And all of that, I mean, we ended up, that was Sunnyside. So normally we'll end up with about 30 barrels of yield on that. We ended up with like 28 barrels of yield on that. So not a lot of beer. I mean, it looks like a lot, but not a lot goes out. It just, a lot of it's foam and a lot of it is just spraying so thinly.
So how do you recover from that? Is it just that it dies down eventually and then you can seal it off, or do you have to try to seal it off while it's still...
No, you just got to let it do its thing.
Okay.
And that's just from the nucleation that happens. So the beer in solution had carbon dioxide in it, so it was already carbonated, naturally carbonated. And we like to cap our beer during a certain part of fermentation so that we can capture as much natural carbonation as we can. Because I've seen people tell you, oh, you should have roused it and you should have knocked off the carbonation. But what's the point of trying to capture some of that and then knocking it all off just to go and dry hop? So if he had done it quickly, and like we always do, and sealed it off, no issue whatsoever. I mean, we do that daily.
Yeah.
It took a little bit of extra time for him to close that thing. It's happened to me. I mean, I think the first few months I was doing it, I was up at the top and I dumped it in a whole bunch, and I'm looking down in there and I'm like, wow, that's pretty cool. Check it out. It's all foaming up. And then something in my head's like, close the freaking door now. Close it. And I try to go to close it, and the thing said nope. So it popped it open and fell all over me. But I mean, it happens. To pretty much any brewer. It's like riding a motorcycle. You either people that have been down or the people that are gonna go down. It's the same thing.
It made for a cool video.
Yeah, I didn't like it at first, but then afterwards, I'm like, you know what? Whatever, I don't care. It's fine.
I before we were talking about how great home brewing and brewers are, but how many home brewers let you know how you could have prevented and caused that to not happen?
I've heard it all, and it's like they just don't understand what it was. The only thing that could have prevented it the way that we do things is him putting in the hops faster and closing the hatch faster. That's it.
I just always it's been a long time since I've taken like an actual tour of a brewery, but I'm always amazed whenever like I'm on a tour and then someone who had identified themselves as a home brewer will then like start giving suggestions to the brewery, like, have you tried this? Have you like? They probably have.
Well, it's like the tech industry. Remember, there's always that one-upmanship in the tech industry. You go to one of these conferences, and like no matter what you do, somebody's done it bigger and better. And like, what? Why? What is that gaining us? Like, let's learn together, or just you don't have to be a douche.
Yeah, that would be a really good shirt.
Don't be a douche.
Yeah, it's good advice. It's like I think this week we'll release part 2, which when people are listening to this will be a couple weeks ago, so who knows when. But I had interviewed a guy who owns a brewery in Sweden.
Okay.
And he had a shirt that said, I think it said try not to suck or just don't suck or something like that. And I was like, well, I mean, that's great life advice. Just don't suck.
Who is the brewery?
Something unpronounceable by my American vocabulary.
Fair enough. All
So
right.
yeah, I can't remember because it was 2 that day. There was a Swedish brewery and then there was a German brewery. The German one was like Libertas something, but the Swedish one had a lot of the and like things that I was not capable of pronouncing.
Too many consonants in a row.
Yeah.
I know a couple of Swedish breweries there. Mostly are awesome people.
Oh, he was an awesome guy. He grew up in Chicago.
Okay.
And then I'm a horrible person because I asked him all these questions. I don't remember the answers to any of them, but somehow he ended up over there and then started a brewery.
Okay.
And then now they're one of the craft breweries in Sweden.
Awesome.
But it was interesting listening to all the differences between the U.S. and like Germany's like the 90s in the U.S. Sweden, he said, it's pretty much very similar. What the trends there, or the trends are what's happening in the U.S. now.
Right.
But Germany's a good like 20 years behind.
They're very stubborn on styles that they will stick to and what proper beer could or should be in some ways. But there's also the problem of the ingredients. So a lot of IPAs are going to be dependent upon some American hops that they can't
don't have access to.
Yeah. Australia and New Zealand has some awesome IPA hops too, which they can probably get, but those are expensive, man. They're Nelson is going on the third party market for like anywhere from $30 to $40 a pound. When you're talking about on a 30 barrel batch, using 132 pounds of it, that gets expensive really quick.
Well, it's like I'd always known Galaxy is it's no secret. Galaxy's really expensive. Yeah. And I was at a brewery recently that had what was a fairly small box of Galaxy, and they said like, we just got this in, and I was like, what do you got, like a grand sitting there? Yeah. Thinking that I was being hyperbolic, and he was like, yeah, it was $850. I was like, oh, okay, well, it's even more expensive than I thought it was.
I was at a brewery once, and I've never seen this before. It's like FedEx came in with like an escort. I'm like, what's going on? And the brewer like popped down and went to sign for it, and he had to show ID and all this other kind of stuff. And it was this box. It was probably like 2 feet by like, I don't know, 8 inches tall or something like that. And I'm like, what's that about? He goes, because there's $46,000 worth of vanilla in this.
Oh my goodness. Jeez.
In this little tiny box, right? It was just, I'm like, oh.
That's another one of those things, like you would never expect vanilla to be as expensive it is. And if I'm correct, it's shot up in price recently too, right?
Yeah, I think the demand for it's been so high.
So you damn breweries want to put vanilla in everything.
Not me. I mean, we do a couple like once a year or twice a year.
See, I actually
that much.
Jailbreak.
Yeah.
Recently had an IPA with mango and vanilla in it, and it was really good.
I bet. Yeah. Justin's doing good stuff up there.
Said I was a big fan of that one. So have you from the beginning? Did you seem to have not maybe a complete focus, but a strong focus on hazy IPAs and close in that genre? Has it always been that way from when you opened, or
no, not at all?
Kind of moving towards? Is it your preference or the consumer driven?
No, it's me, and it's our head brewer Jack, and other staff too. It's what we want to drink, and we've constantly evolved. So when we started, we were doing more of a clear. I wouldn't exactly call it West Coast IPA because it wasn't West Coast IPA. It was really not West Coast, but that's what people categorized us as. But we always just make moves and change and decide, hey, that was good, but what if we did that a little softer? What if we did that a little more bitter? What if we did that a little more this? And we just recreate things. So we've done close to 300 different beers in 4 years.
And I would say anyone who hasn't had Ocelot, you should try them, because one, even though I think so, the current issue of our magazine came out, and I brought a guy who typically only drinks wine, and I take him you met him briefly. I think he bailed out quickly.
Yep.
He's a wine snob. And so I make him drink beer and try different beers. And it was the first time when I was here that I got like a whole flight of things. And that I think the day we were here, you just sold out of like a bunch of the different things. So it was almost a flight of all hazy IPAs, but they all tasted different.
Right.
There's so many breweries you can go to, and everyone is like, you couldn't really differentiate the difference between them.
I appreciate you noticing that.
So
there are breweries that just take the basic same beer recipe and just change a hop and call it something else. We don't do that at all. I mean, if we're even remotely close to another beer as far as recipe goes, we will make sure we name it in a similar fashion, like we did Home, and then we did Elsewhere, and it was the same grist, but we changed the hops, and the can art was identical, but the colors were reversed, kind of thing. So we make sure we pay homage to that, to know that it's different, because we try really hard to be different in every beer we do.
And there's no hop burn, which I also appreciate. You wait until your beer's done to serve it.
Yes. Which costs us money. I mean, we wait up to 4 weeks on an IPA, which is unheard of in some of these other breweries. They'll do 12 days, 14 days, 21 days tops, and we're doing like 30 days. But even our regulars, so when we first opened, we were doing 3-week IPAs. Our regulars would come in, and they would always order the newest IPA. And then after a while, I was like, hey, you want the new one? They're like, no, I'll take last week's new one. And they started telling me, like, if I wait a week, I know it's going to be better. So I'm going to wait a week and then try it. I'm like, there's something there, you know. So
yeah, there was a couple weeks ago. I was talking to a brewery, and we were talking about possibly doing a beer together, and we were joking around that we were just going to name it "Give It a Week."
There you go.
Because that seems to be said so often.
Yeah. But I'm always under the same thing. It's like the brewer should decide when that beer is going to be drinking properly. That's why I'm not a big fan of barrel age of cellaring beers too. I mean, there are a couple of beers that are meant to be cellared and get better, but for the most part, you're killing that beer.
Yeah.
Like, to all the people out there that have cellars, I'm sorry, man, you're doing it wrong. Like you're ruining your beer.
Yeah, all those.
And I had 400
and
bottles, and I had shit collected from all over the place, and I'm killing the beer for what? So that my shelf looks cool. Like, and the one good thing that came of it, when you had all those beers, I started having games with friends and being like, all right, you go in the cellar, pick out any 2 beers you want to. Bring them out, put them behind your back, and the whole group will pick like left hand or right hand. And then that's what we're drinking, no matter what. Nothing was off the table. And that made it fun, enjoying the beers, you know? And that's what they should be for, not internet points for how much you have in your cellar. There are a couple that do better, and the brewer will tell you that usually. Drink it after this date, or store it up to 2 years or whatever.
I think, though, in some ways, though, there's a counter philosophy of that's almost detrimental, where I've seen people refer to a beer that's a month old as being too old and not fresh anymore. Right. And like if someone says something about it not tasting right, and like, well, what do you expect? That beer was released a month ago. Right. Like, well, me personally, I expect the beer to still taste right after a month.
30 days should be, you should be able to enjoy the beer. Yeah. But some are meant to be drank really fresh. Some are meant, I mean, it depends on the style, obviously.
Yeah,
An
of
IPA, I wouldn't think of unless it's 120 minute, which to me, that's one of those beers that when it's super fresh, it's awesome. And then it has to be 5 years old. And then it's awesome again. But everywhere in between, I'm like, whatever.
Yeah, see, I'm not a fan of that. It's just too
super
boozy.
Fresh or super old. It's an incredible beer.
See, I think I've only ever had it in the what you would dictate the
middle
not
window.
the not good range. So maybe that's why. Maybe I should try to find some really old ones to try.
And keep in mind though, after 5 years, it's not really an IPA. I mean, it's
more of just barley wine,
pretty much. Yeah.
Which is, and I think that's what I didn't like about it is like I'm not a fan of barley wines, and when I drank it, even for whatever freshness it was at, it just made me think it was a barley wine.
Right.
Like the only barley wines I really like are ones that are super old and have just completely mellowed out.
Some can be over the top. I was not a fan of barley wines for a while until I tried, my brother sent me a bottle of Abacus, the first Firestone. Now it's Sukaba, I think. And it blew me away. I'm like, what the heck is this? And I just since then I've become a huge barley wine fan. But some of them have tried to become over the top with what they do. And stylistically, but the British and the American versions have now, separated more. So, and they're different.
So are hazy IPAs your favorite style or pilsners?
I don't really have one. I love all beers really. I mean, the only beers I do not like are pumpkin beers and smoked beers.
So is it just pumpkin beers or pumpkin pie beers with like the spices and stuff, or if it's just made from like a gourd, you don't even like it?
No, because pumpkin itself really doesn't have a flavor profile. And originally it was used in beer because there wasn't enough malt. Yeah. So it was roasted and it was used for the sugars and it was made, but you wouldn't get a flavor from it.
Yeah, so those ones I'm completely fine with, but I cannot stand when you have nutmeg and all those other spices in a beer.
I mean, I'll drink 2 to 4 ounces a year and be like, all right, I'm done. But like smoked beers, don't get me close to those. I can't stand them.
I'm also in 100 agreement with that Smoked beers should not exist, and they're an abomination to a delicious liquid. Graham apparently disagrees with me. I've had that argument with a bunch of people, and it just ends with me telling them they're wrong, and we don't need to go any further.
every other style I can enjoy, and it depends on the day. Today's a Pilsner day. Tomorrow might be stout. I mean, next week we have our 5% milk stout coming out, and it'll all be on nitro, and I'll probably just be drinking that for a week. So that was after my second daughter was born. All my wife drank was Left Hand's nitro milk stout. Yeah, excellent beer.
She wanted me to get her a Guinness. When I ran to the store, I don't know if they were out or like the Left Hand was just closer, and I was like, well, I want to try this, and then she was like addicted for several months afterwards and just drank nothing but that.
That is good stuff.
Would you like to try some beach drink?
Yes, I would.
So while I'm pouring this, do you want to give a rundown of maybe some things you have coming up that people should keep an eye out for?
I can try to remember what we got coming out. Let's see. Tomorrow, actually, we have our collaboration with Crooked Run. I'm
excited for that one.
It's an IPA that he used his new place, the new restaurant that he has right next door, to puree a bunch of grapefruits, rind and all, and we used that in the IPA during fermentation. And I always love doing anything with Crooked Run. Those guys are incredible people. And
did you have
workaholics.
Group therapy? It just came out last week.
No, I have not. No.
It is super good. I had one of those last night. It was when I first had it, I was semi-disappointed. So Graham's just going to walk right in front of the camera to grab. Oh, never mind.
Thank you. Cheers.
I first tried it and I was slightly disappointed because I had cheers, high hopes for it, and I think it's one of those beers that needs to warm up a tad to open up the flavors, because once it had been poured for a little while, it was phenomenal.
This is really good.
Thank you. I had minimal involvement with the actual brewing. Kenny, who you know, is a phenomenal brewer.
Another genius in the field, and one of the nicest guys you'll probably ever meet in the industry. Kenny Allen's he's helped me a ton. I mean, when I was starting and didn't know anything from being a professional brewer, and met him when he was up at Old Ox, he just opened up and just said, whatever you want to know, just talk to me.
It was funny. This came about where I think you know Brendan, right? Because he was part of I think he belonged to the homebrew club.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, he was part of this homebrew club. Yeah.
So we were talking about he asked me if I was interested in doing a collaboration. So when we were talking about what we were going to make, we came upon, I'd really love strawberry lemonade goza.
Okay.
And when he was looking at his brew schedule, he said it was okay, we can brew this day and it'll come out mid June. I was like, that's perfect. I'll be able to take it to the beach with me. I'm headed to the Outer Banks. He's like, all right, that's the name, Beach Drink. I'm like, well, that is a perfect name. And then he was like, I can just picture on the can a picture you
sitting on the beach drinking.
Yeah, a picture of you drinking a glass with an umbrella and a straw in it. And I was like,
there it is.
All right, well, and then at that moment I was like, that's all I want in life is my face on a beer can. And then it was when I was driving from Frederick down to Rockville, up until that point, all I was completely excited that my face was going to be on a beer can.
Right.
And then for some reason, it just popped into my head. It was the first. I was driving down there.
I'd be scared, by the way, if somebody put my face on.
Well, I was driving down there where we were going to do experiments on how much lemon juice we wanted to add in after it fermented on the strawberries. And for some reason, it just popped into my head at that point, wait, what if it's not good? Or
then my face will be associated with
what if I don't
beer.
What if I don't like this beer? And my face is on it, and I've been talking about it constantly. But thankfully,
it came out great.
Kenny is an amazing brewer.
He really is.
And so is Brian, the assistant brewer there. and I tried it, and it tasted great without the lemon in it, and then adding the lemon in it just made it even better.
Kenny's one of those dudes. He's not going to make something bad.
Yeah.
I mean, he just knows too much to allow it to go bad.
And I think that's probably why, too, like, it had never popped into my mind, because I never had a true respite beer that I didn't like.
Yeah.
So but for some reason, it just popped into my head as like, wait, what if this is bad? But thankfully, it turned out great, I could be proud that my...
Did you keep some?
I still have... Yeah. I mean, I still have not a whole lot left, but...
You can show it to your daughter when she's older and be like, Daddy was on a beer can.
Oh, they already thinking... They also they don't recognize like how easy it is just to put videos on the internet too, so they think I'm way more important than I
You're
am.
A rock star.
Just because I have, in that I have a magazine that I'm in. But it also gave me the ability. My eldest daughter took a picture of a dog that one of the distillers in Frederick owns, and so I got to put that photo in the magazine. So that's very cool. My 9-year-old is a published photographer. She's just as accomplished as Graham,
who didn't know the Beastie Boys there.
Yeah. And if my wife was on the front of the newspaper for this high school program that she's one of the people that run. And so like she showed it to her daughter and like rightfully very proud about it. And instantly my daughter's like, well, so Daddy has an entire magazine. Oh. So that's throwing shade, Graham. Yeah. So I'm glad you like it, because I always this is the second episode I brought a can with to share, and I'm always nervous, like, what if they don't like it too?
Nah. I like all beer. I mean, for a while when I was still trading beers, I used to ask for home brews. Like I just why not? Like I like trying different stuff and figuring out in my head how that's made or why it tastes the way it does.
And this is a beer that beach drink that I found I like it a lot more when it's warm.
Okay.
Because the strawberry flavor comes out so much more.
Strawberry's hard flavor to get out. You need a lot of strawberry.
Yeah, well, I can't remember the exact amount, but it was a lot of strawberry used.
You can taste it though and smell it. It's good.
So and you do a decent amount of sours also, right?
We try to. It always falls behind because it holds up the brew house for a while, and
because you have a two days brewing, and then it's not any longer in the tank though, right? It's just that.
No, in the tank it's just the brew house that gets held up because we bring everything back into the kettle and we have to purge that out and then let the lactobacillus do its thing, and then from there boil it again and knock it out. Then we clean everything, even though technically it should be clean because it's boiled, but we clean everything to get it back up and running. So it can take up 4 or 5 days sometimes with the whole process from start to finish, just to make one for 15 barrels. So a 30 barrel is going to be really hard for us to pull off.
So for the longest time, one of my most liked photos on Instagram was of Purple Rain.
Nice.
I think it's the combination of it was beautiful can artwork and then the bright color of the beer itself.
Thank you. Did you ever see the art spread out?
You showed it to me, which
it's hard to see on the can.
It's impossible. Yeah. Like I didn't notice at all. It was for anyone that hadn't seen it. It has, if you see it laid out flat, you can tell that it has
prints.
Yeah, prints in kind of like a silhouette.
Right.
Of him, but when it's on the can, with not seeing the whole thing, you can't really. It doesn't jump out at you.
Yeah, that was a fun beer.
So, you talked about the Crooked Run collab you have coming up.
Yeah, we have Mr. Kite coming out this week as well, which is a Nelson and Citra IPA, which is one of my favorites that we do. It's a little bit softer than Home. Home is a rye IPA we do with Nelson and Citra. This has a lot of oats in it, and it's Nelson and Citra. Different base grain as well. Slightly different hop schedule, but it's one of my favorite ones we do, and that's from the Beatles. So, Mr. Kite.
I can't think of that. song. That's where we recently just got a dog. We named her Lucy.
Nice.
She's named after Lucy. And
same album, just a few songs more in the album.
So although my 4-year-old just calls her Lucy Flying in the Sky with Diamonds. Anything else coming up or anything else you want to discuss?
No, not really. I mean, you ask me, I'll answer. Yeah. I'm an open book. You know me, I don't really promote anything. So we just exist.
I don't think you give yourself enough credit though, because you definitely are a very popular brewery. Actually,
I appreciate that, but we try to just do the right thing all the time, like with everything. We try to think about everybody. We try to think about what's going to be fun. And my main motto here is, we're not in the business of making beer. We're in the business of making people happy. And that goes across the board. And that exists from the staff that's up front to the beer in the back to the entire experience that somebody's going to have. They come here to have a good time. They don't come here to get upset. They don't come here to work. They come here to relax, to have a good time, to be happy. And that's what I want to always do.
And I bet there are probably a lot of cynical people listening to that thinking like you're just paying lip service. That's PR stuff. But I mean, the one day I was here, the first day I met you, that you graciously sat down and talked to me for quite a while. And it was when you, the brewing staff and a lot of people, it was at the end of the day. Mm-hmm. Every one of your employees came and gave you a hug before they left. Mm-hmm. And I was like, just amazing. I've never seen people who enjoyed where they worked
they're my family,
who they worked for so much that they like.
I'm just shocked that a lot of them on their days off, they come and hang out. It's like, what job did you ever have where it's your day off and you're like, I'm going to work? I'm like, what?
I haven't had that one yet. Well, I mean, I
do.
I do this part of my job
awesome.
often when I'm off, so
yeah.
I guess I kind of do, but
so,
I'm not going in and
I have one rule with them, and that's like, if you don't feel like being here today, get out. Go home. We'll cover for you. Because if you're in a bad mood or if you don't feel like being here, that's going to be infectious to everything, to the staff, to the customers. And that's not what we're about. And that's really like my only rule. Like, everything else goes after that. Whatever. I don't care.
And I feel like a lot of people say that, or they talk about like their business, like everyone's family, but like I witnessed it firsthand. Like your employees obviously have a very high opinion and care about you. Because I know I would not at the end of the day give my boss a hug.
Well, I like to think of this. I mean, like it's my family here. I mean, without them, I don't exist. They work their asses off when they need to, and when there's other times that they don't. It's not busy or whatever, I don't care what they're doing. Like, do whatever you want. Like, I remember when I was a kid and I worked at McDonald's for my first job, there was always the saying, if you're leaning, you should be cleaning, right? I'm not trying to get the most out of my hourly wage. I'm trying to get the most out of the happiness of the people, because that's infectious and that goes around everywhere.
So, how many breweries is Loudon at now? Last time I looked, it was like
30. I should know this. It's like 32 or 33, I think, maybe.
Okay, so it's it's been a little while since one opened.
It's slowed down a little bit. Yeah,
and it's still a lot for not a humongous area.
Yeah.
When you opened, how many were there?
There was Rhino. There was Old Ox had just opened about 6 months prior, I think. Adroit Theory was open. Corcoran was open.
Vanish.
I'm probably missing. No, maybe. Vanish wasn't open yet. That might be it.
So you're like one of the first gen Loudon breweries.
I'd call me second gen. I think Rhino's going to always be able to claim the credit of the first gen because they
Rhino and Adroit.
Rhino first. I mean, Rhino's been around.
Yeah,
they've been a long time, and Matt and Fabio was there at the time. They paved the way for a lot of us to be here and to do stuff, and I'll never forget that. Jasper worked over there. You're going to talk to him soon.
Okay.
He worked over at Rhino for a while. He was the head brewer after Fabio left. but he was always doing his yeasts and stuff like that out of there. After that, I think probably the Gen 2 crowd with Ox and Adroit, and I know I'm missing somebody. It'll come to me probably after we're done talking. Well, Corcoran, actually. Corcoran was probably one of the first ones, too, because Jim had a cidery and a winery, and he helped write a lot of ABC laws, actually. He helped pave the way for 604 to happen in Virginia. So
there's the one farm brewery, is it Old
690?
Yeah,
yep.
They were one of the early on ones, weren't they?
I think they were just after us, or right around the same time, maybe. And then they opened Harper's Ferry.
Okay,
so that's them as well.
Yeah, I've heard that place is absolutely beautiful.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
And then they have the former brewer from Manor Hill in Maryland is the brewmaster there now.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
Oh,
from
nice.
what I understand, at least.
Not Ben, right?
No, Ben's.
Where's Ben at now?
Ben's in Gettysburg at a brewery named Fourscore that's about to open.
Okay,
like
gotcha.
any day now.
Okay.
Yeah, it's who replaced Ben after Ben left.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, Manor Hill I was blown away. That place is beautiful. It was my first time going a few weeks ago. We did a collab with them. Wow, what a beautiful piece of property. And so nice. The people are awesome.
And also, it's one of those places, though, when you're driving up to, like, you feel like you're lost. Like, you don't expect a brewery to end, like,
I had my GPS on, and I still hit the dead end, and I'm like, where the hell am I? And I had to look at my rearview mirror, and I saw, like, the little sign. I was like, oh, and I turned down the road and drive down, and they have chickens.
So I will point out, too, the article that Trevor wrote about drinking here, he did have one complaint about the location.
Yep.
Because Trevor doesn't understand the charm of a brewery that's in a in an industrial area. He's used to his fancy wineries, or he goes to Vanish a lot.
It's pretty simple, actually.
He liked the interior and all the painting and stuff. It was
in the state of Virginia, we're considered manufacturing, which we should. So we can only be in places that are zoned for manufacturing, unless you live in a township or some local government overrides that. So if we went to Herndon, per se, because they have a township, or a town of Falls Church or something like that, we could lobby to be in a different location, in a more frontal, place or whatever. Or we could be a farm brewery and have a thing like Vanish has, or Quattro Goomba has, or a lot of places like that. Dirt Farm and Bear Chase.
I mean, really, I just brought it up as a point to say you really shouldn't pay any attention to what Trevor says.
We have no choice. I mean, we cannot legally do this in a strip mall.
See, that's interesting. I didn't know that about Virginia. Is that Loudoun County, or is that Virginia?
It's Virginia as a whole. But local government can overrule that. So, for instance, like down in Southern Virginia, so like Devil's Backbone and that whole corridor, the local government was like, okay, you guys, you have this whole corridor, you guys go over there. And it's like that alcohol alley or whatever. And it's like cideries and breweries and everything going all the way down. So they were allowed to do that over there. And it all depends. Richmond, slightly different. I mean, Richmond also can dictate what they want and where they're going to be.
Yeah, because they have stuff all over the place.
All over. But the zoning in Richmond is also kind of strange too. So the ones that are in the commercial strip spots are going to normally have a restaurant associated with them. Because if you have a restaurant, it's different. You're not getting a brewery license anymore. You're getting a brew pub license or a restaurant license. So if you're straight manufacturing brewery license up here, you're in a zone. You have to be zoned for manufacturing.
Okay.
So we're stuck with these brick walls. Now the good side of that is it's cheaper.
Yeah.
It's the cheapest real estate that's out there.
But it's also where the vast majority of craft breweries are. So your target customers aren't looking like, I don't want to go to a industrial park to drink beer. That's what they're used to.
Yep. That's what we got to deal with. And I think it's become normal enough, and people have seen it a lot to not like look twice and say, why the heck are they in an industrial park? But because we all most of us are.
Well, I want to thank you so much for giving me some of your time and
Sure thing, man.
having us down to the brewery for your delicious beer. And I want to thank everyone for watching and listening.
Yeah. Thank you guys.
Cheers.
Absolutely, everybody. Cheers. Drink one of yours.